Good morning, students, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Asian Business School, under the aegis of Asian Education Group, I welcome you all to this webinar today, the Lenskart Journey. We have with us the very dynamic, creative, and enterprising entrepreneur, the CEO and founder of Lenskart, Mr. Piyush Bansal. He is going to take us through his journey, and I'm sure dole out tips for our students on how to become successful in business. But before that, let's get acquainted with him. Mr. Piyush Bansal is the CEO and founder at Lenskart, a veteran in the e-commerce space with close to 9 years of work experience. Mr. Bansal founded Lenskart in the year 2010. Lenskart envisioned to solve India's eye care problems and redefine the complex eye care category with a hybrid model of both online and click and mortar presence. The company's focus on local manufacturing, backed by cutting-edge technology, enables consumers to get high-quality, affordable, and trendy eyewear. Mr. Bansal embarked on his entrepreneurial journey with internet-based innovations when he founded India's first online campus classifieds portal, searchmycampus.com, in 2007. He then started working with small retail setups in the US with those who wanted to expand their online presence in India, selling jewelry, cosmetics, eyewear, etc. His expertise lies in setting up new business initiatives and taking them to heights of success. With sufficient success in the domain of e-markets, Value Technologies came into existence in 2008. And finally, the business model of Lenskart.com was laid out in November 2010. Under his leadership, the company has witnessed a 200% year-on-year growth in the last 2 years. Mr. Bansal comes from a business background and has had a great professional stint at Microsoft, which helped him gain vast knowledge on managing and driving Lenskart as a leader. He is known for his innovative ideas and has a deep understanding of human capital, organization development, and finance, which has brought in a revolutionary transformation in his venture. He was always fascinated with the growing e-commerce concept in varied concepts and sectors. It is his sheer passion and interest in the e-retailing sector that laid the foundation for Lenskart.com. The Economic Times has recognized Piyush Bansal as India's hottest business leaders under 40. Mr. Piyush Bansal is an alumnus from McGill University in Canada, from where he pursued his bachelor's in engineering, following which he completed his management program for entrepreneurs and family businesses, MPEFB, from the esteemed Indian Institute of Management, Bengaluru. Asian Education Group welcomes you, Mr. Piyush Bansal. And now we request you to please take the stage and give us the passion-driven story behind Lenskart. Over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for inviting me today. Usually not something that I like to do too much, but because a friend requested, I thought it'll be interesting. I see there's a lot of people on this call, about 300 students. I don't know if I can share much, which will be of help, but I can definitely try. Would like to keep a lot of time for Q&A in the end, because to make it more relevant for everybody. Otherwise, it may, become quite boring. So, as mentioned, I'll start talking about our journey, my journey at Lenskart, and everybody has their own in the startup process. A lot of it is related to being at the right place, right time, and making a few correct calls, the good people coming together. So this is how my journey also started. I came back to India, leaving my job in 2008, and with a very broad view of what I wanted to do. I clearly had a very, very good sense of, uh, that the what matters in today's environment, and I would give this credit largely to my job at Microsoft, where we were very, very consumer obsessed, and we all our time would only go in figuring out how could we make lives of our customers better. And uh, that was quite revolutionary and impactful for me. And while at Microsoft it was going really well, I felt that whatever we were doing there was quite incremental, and I wanted to do something which was more revolutionary, where we were not just making it slightly better. We were, building something from ground up and revolutionizing. Because a large part of the job was really adding more features to Microsoft Office, whereas Office in itself is a great tool and it's solving lives of a lot of people. I'm pretty sure in MBA you cannot imagine life without Excel, and that was my line of work then. And when I came to India, I think it was exciting. It was a big risk for me also, to take that plunge. So I started pretty much out of my house basement, where there was a car garage, and I converted into a small office. And to my luck, I got some good people early on to come and join me. And I initially did not start out as Lenskart. I started out purely with the vision that we will solve problems using technology, and because I really truly still believe that technology is one of the fundamental means to solve a lot of problems that the world is facing today. And that's how I started. And I first picked up the problem of student housing in India. And because of my past experience, when I went to college, housing was a big problem. So I built a online interface for students to find housing near campus, and started myself alone. And then meeting people. A lot of young students from universities volunteered to work, because in those days couldn't afford to pay a lot of salary to people. So most of the people were working part-time from Delhi University, Amity University, etc. And along the way, found some great people who came along, and some of them, even after they finished their university, decided to come and work full time with me, and at very, very low salaries compared to what they could get in the market. So just in my house basement, we grew to about a 14-member team. We were serving about 1,500 colleges in India. And the focus was very clear, that are we really creating value for students and for the housing providers, which was primarily PG owners. And one thing that I've realized, that if we are creating true value, then the rest everything can pretty much fall in place. And we were very real about what we were doing. In those days, the whole venture capitalist India wasn't this dynamic about entrepreneurship or venture money. So it was till from 2008 till 2011. I was pretty much doing the whole campus work with my team. And from a 14 people team, we grew to a 30 people team. And we were working with a lot of students. And along the journey, I came across a lot of great people who joined us. Some of them, then co-founded Lenskart with me. One of them is my co-founder Amit, who had joined me from BIT Mesra. And Amit had, very good offers in those days. And I'm sharing this because a lot of you are students. Amit, BIT Mesra is a good engineering college. He could have gone Pune. He had a good job offer of 6 lakh rupees per annum 10 years back, which in today's time could be, more like a 12 to 15 lakh offer. But he joined me for hardly 10,000 rupees a month. And I didn't even have a place for him to stay. So he stayed with me in my house, and the office was in the basement. And later, me and Amit then co-founded Lenskart in 2010, while we were still working on the college problem. We wanted to keep the larger picture in mind, that we wanted to use technology to solve niche, big problems. And one such problem was eyewear, which was something that I had read about. It was, about 500 million people in India, which is pretty much half of India needs vision correction, and 40% of world's uh, visually impaired live in India. So it was a big problem that nobody was focusing on, and it was an interesting one because we had seen our success in focusing on a very small problem in college housing. So we were very excited about taking a small problem versus a large problem, and do what everybody else was doing. Because the focus in the company also used to be called value. So we were very, very obsessed about creating true consumer value, and that's how it all started. So we, in 2010, we decided, okay, let's try out this category, and pretty much with an intern we had hired from one of the engineering colleges. And what we saw is that the problem was big. It was actually much bigger than the housing problem in India, which was still related only to college students. And as we got, we applied the same principles, which was what problem are consumers facing? Why are they buying? Why are they not buying? Why is there such a deficit? And with the same team of 30 people, which was working on campus, we also started exploring this problem. And after a year into it, we realized that this was actually quite big in terms of problem. And it was very, very simple. We were not into manufacturing, but we were always very, very concerned about customers. So we would make glasses ourselves. We would deliver them ourselves between me and Amit and a few other. Our HR person was also involved in delivering glasses. We would make them right in our meeting rooms. And so that's how the journey really started for us. And what we saw is that there are a lot of problems that customers were facing. The price was very high, the quality was poor, service was poor, there was no access. So while we started as a pure online company, the large focus for us was never that we were online or whatever. It was really about solving this problem. And I think that was very, very important, because a lot of entrepreneurship today is about, okay, let's see what model is working in US, what model is working in India. This model is, venture capital money is flowing in. So let me start this business. I think when we do it this way, a lot of times, majority of the times, you're not really focused on the problem, but more in terms of making money. And the reality is, the more you try to make money, you don't really make money. The more you try to make meaning, you probably end up doing the other stuff yourself. So I think for us, what worked really well is that we were very, very away from this whole venture world and business world. We were very so focused that we didn't really even care about how much money we were making. We just were hand to mouth for almost 4-5 years, just giving people salaries somehow and not really taking anything ourselves, just enough to survive. And at that age, when I was 20, 22, 23, it didn't really matter. You don't have that many expenses or people to support. So it's probably the right age to do some of this, because you're not, there are no other commitments that you have in life. And I think because we started from a problem and, working towards a solution, things worked very well. And along the way, in 2011, when we were doing this, we never really went out and tried to raise any venture money. And honestly, I didn't have the background to do so, and I didn't know how to do so. But somebody knocked on our door, which was our Series A investor, IDG. And they liked what we were working on. And they said that we want to give you this much money for doing what you're doing. We actually didn't even want that much money. We didn't even know how that would play out. But, it sounded interesting. It sounded, we could trust with these guys. We actually didn't even negotiate anything on valuation, equity, how much money. Today, that market, and I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs, and they are calculating too much beyond how much equity should I give. And some people say you should give too less. Some people, actually, when you have nothing, somebody is putting some bet on you. Something is more than nothing. And I think that was the space we were in those days. Yeah, so, IDG came along. We shifted to Okhla. We really wanted to be at the back end, and we wanted to really manufacture glasses. So we took up a factory space. And unlike a lot of other companies, we didn't really have a corporate office. We worked out of the factory. At least that's how I've seen traditional businessmen work in India. So we worked out of the factory and were very focused on making high quality spectacles for our customers. We went very, very deep into understanding every little problem about specs, nose pads, lenses. What would the consumer want? What are the core problems? Dust, scratches, size, and how much should this cost us? How much should they make? Can we really reduce the cost? Can we kill some intermediaries? And a lot of that work happened in the initial years, and we were not really growing that fast. I would say we were really very, very focused on solving what are the problems of consumers. And like I said, we were not like a lot of the other e-commerce companies that you may come across, and we didn't really have such huge targets to meet. But one thing which was happening in those days is we were very close to the consumer. We were understanding their problems very, very well. And in parallel, what was automatically happening without us doing is that a great company was getting formed, in my view, which consumers valued. And as we started reaching more consumers, those consumers would tell other consumers, because we couldn't really market that much. And we realized there are a lot of customers who now want Lenskart spectacles. And when we went and met a lot of those customers, they said that we are not comfortable buying online. We want to try these frames. We have heard a lot about you guys, but so just again working consumer backward, we tried saying, okay, if people really want to buy our products, let's try with a store. And which today I think the world calls it omni-channel. But it wasn't really omni-channel for us, as much as saying, okay, this is what consumers want. And it was, and we were so true to problem solving that we didn't really build it like a typical store, because the problem was that they wanted to try the frame. So we just allowed them to try the frame, and they were still placing orders online. And that solved that problem. And what we realized is that there were queues outside the store, and people were very, very happy. And till date, we only measure how satisfied our customers are every day. And that is the most important metric. And so I used to live in GK2, office was in Okla factory. So we opened a store in a very small market, Alaknanda. So we didn't really go to a big city walk or a Mall of India, couldn't afford to. But that was good enough test of proof that, okay, this is what consumers are asking for. And that's how, this whole so-called omni-channel journey also started for us. And then we had a lot of consumers who said, we want an eye test done, but we don't even want to go to the store. So we started a service saying, okay, we can do an eye test at your home. And today we have about 300 people who do close to about 10,000 eye tests. Sorry, close to about 1,000 eye tests at consumers' houses. And again, there was a lot of question that this will not make money. This will not be sustainable. How can you send somebody to someone's house? And we were not charging any money for it that day. But the reality is that that was the consumer problem. And what we realized is that out of 5 visits that we did, almost 4 people bought a pair of spectacles from us. So, which paid for the visit in itself. So, the bottom line was that, can we really solve consumer problems? And so while we were doing this along the journey, what also came is a little bit of extra ambition and deviation, and which happens all the time. We always get distracted. So we tried, based on a lot of feedback, to enter other categories. And we decided to get into watches, bags, jewelry, all of a sudden. I think in 6 months, we launched everything. And what we realized was that while the business was very good, we were not really adding too much value in that categories. And because the company was so centered around value creation, we never really, while the revenue was very good, probably larger than eyewear, and markets were very big of jewelry, we didn't think that we were doing too much. In eyewear, we clearly could say we were making the best quality spectacles at the best possible price. But on watches, bags, and jewelry, it was just not our DNA, and wasn't in, and when something is not in the DNA, even though Excel wise it may look very powerful, the reality is, we have to start thinking about long term. So good sense prevailed on us. And I think with the help of some mentors, we decided to shut those businesses very soon. And it was really, I think one of the best calls we did, because it was a large part of our revenue. I think 80% of our revenue was coming from these categories, and only 20% was coming from eyewear. But we clearly, and I think I could clearly see, the team could clearly see that, this is where the future is. This is what people remember us for. This is what people know us as. So we decided to do that. And I think after that, like ma'am was saying, we really witnessed hyper growth in the company because we had hired a lot of people by then for these different categories, and we could just focus all that energy into eyewear. And we already had a list of problems that consumers were facing: quality of frame, quality of lens, delivery time, channels, eye testing. And we could put people on different problems, and everybody started working on them. And what we realized is that the power of focus, power of, really creating meaning is very, very high. And so while the journey could not be hockey stick, it was more like this. We saw, if you're very, very focused and you're honest, that's the journey. So sometimes it's just better to, stay put on the problem and solve it. And that's how the journey has been. I think we still continue. We're still very, very small compared to where the problem is. Like I said, there are about 500, 600 million people in India who need specs. Last year, we shipped about 7 million pairs of glasses. So we are still very, very, small when it compares, considering the problem where it is. And two questions we need to ask and answer ourselves every day. Why people who are buying, and why people who are not buying. And for our category, the problems are a lot of people are not even aware that they need specs. So I think you can ask that question when you are, very, very small. You can ask that question when you're very, very big. I don't think those two questions would change in terms of why people who are buying. I think it's very important for you to know what's working, and why people who are not buying. If you can just continuously answer both of these questions on a daily level, no matter what the stage of the organization is, I think you'll have a lot to do for the next, next year. And there is always more to do and India is a witness of how big some small problems and how people have gone and created large enterprises by solving small problems. So yeah, and then, since then we have been on a journey. We found that, this is a big problem, and now we started scaling. A lot of our investments, unlike other companies, went on creating supply chain. So rather than investing a lot in customer acquisition, we invested a lot in supply chain creation. We put up a large factory in Gurgaon, where today we are making 20,000 spectacles a day. And we invested a lot in robotics, automation, very, very traditional investments, and the goal was really that can I give a 20,000 rupees spectacle worth 20,000 rupees at 2,000 rupees, but even better quality than 20,000. So we really invested a lot of time, energy, money in getting every nitty-gritty detail, and that work still continues for us. And then as time passed, we invested into frame manufacturing, lens manufacturing, understanding every little bit detail about the frames. And on the front end side, we were continuously about creating better experience for consumers. So we saw consumers were coming online. They wanted a trial. So we created a virtual try-on for them. Everything is consumer problem led. We understood that a lot of our consumers who are visiting online, the same consumers want to try. So rather than really investing in marketing, we started pushing our people who were coming online and showing them our nearest store. And that's how our stores started doing a lot better than, a lot of the competition stores, because people knew what our product was. They would engage and they would exactly know where our store was. So we didn't really have to market too much our stores, and we saw consumers were coming, and we were very, very focused. So if your order gets late, we would, without asking, return back your money. And so we started a lot of these initiatives. We were the first ones to launch a 1-year warranty on our glasses. If your glasses break, then we launched insurance on our glasses, that even if you break it manually, we could, for 99 rupees, just replace it for you. So a lot of work went into making sure, while we were building the front end and the back end, into generating that experience. And then the whole, time of omni-channel came, where consumers, we realized, are online, offline, at home, and, they're interacting with your brand, in a taxi, they're on the phone. In office, they're on a desktop. Sometimes they're on phone interacting with you, and they're in the store. And what we realized is that this is very powerful. If we can create a consistent experience for consumers entering in a store. So we, like I said, we are just solving these problems daily. And a large part of this work is actually around people. You know, one of the things that 90% of whatever goes on in an organization building is not what, you know, the founder or the founding team does. It is the people that you bring along do it. And that is, I think, one thing that, you know, I don't know how much of that would you would learn in management school. You'll have to really go out there and dive yourself into it, because you can have a perfect model, you could be solving problem, you could have a great product and a great price, but if the people piece is not something, and you know, eventually you'll become a people leader more than a product leader or any of that. And organizations are built with people, and the requirement of organizations at different stages is very different. The kind of people you bring in is very crucial. What stage, what people you need at early stage, what people you need, and mid stage, what people you need, and what really works for you is super important. And that is not something that probably I can guide you too much on a call. You'll really experience it yourself once you go out there. But do remember that, you know, people is something that would take a, you know, precedence over any of this. What people you bring along, how you retain them, are they the right people? Because you can't just hire experienced people to build large companies. You need a good balance. You need at least till a mid-sized stage, you really need passionate, hungry people. And you know, new age enterprises are not created with experience. They're created with problem solving. They are created with hunger and ability to learn and solve that problem versus applying a solution which is already there. So you don't really need a lot of experienced people early stage. I think till a very later stage. And as you grow with your organization, you could bring in experienced people, but only people who are willing to unlearn and learn and adopt new ways, because world is changing very fast. What was happening in 100 years earlier, it was happening in 10, and now what was happening in 10 is happening in a year. So nobody really knows what needs to be done. Experience is valuable, but along with experience, ability to learn, and which is why constantly reading, being aware of what is happening around the world, challenging, and really adopting the approach of problem solving is super crucial when you want to build great enterprises. Because as you bring along people who are more intelligent than you, more experienced than you as entrepreneurs, one of the things that you'll realize is that those people will bring a lot of baggage with themselves, right? And if you run the way everybody else is running their company, you'll probably lose a competitive edge that you want to create. So, you know, I think it's important. Culture is very important, how you treat your people. You cannot really build large enterprises by not sharing, not recognizing. You know, you need, you know, you can only grow to a certain level in the old model where everything was owned by the owner. In, you know, in the new age world, you know, you bring along people who pretty much become entrepreneurs, founders. I have 4 co-founders now. I didn't know any of them. And as they came along, you know, they became co-founders because of the contribution they did to the company. So that's Lenskart today. We are now shipping 7 million pairs. We're the largest optical business in the country, both online, offline. We are 2 times larger than the second largest, which is Titan Eye Plus. And I would say we still have a long way to go. You know, lastly, what I would also say is that, you know, 3 key messages: create meaning, rest everything will follow. Stay grounded. It's not important to be in news all the time. It's not important to shout. If you focus on the consumer problem, you'll create a great business. That is what matters. And third, you know, find great people. That is not the work of HR. That is the work of the founder. Take them along. You'll find right fit. Not everybody will be right fit, but when you find them, keep them with you and grow with them. And they are the ones who are going to grow you and the company, and not you yourself. So I'll stop there, because I think there's a Q&A also. And I hope this was helpful.
Yeah, that was really lovely, Piyush. And amongst our participants, we have enthusiastic aspirants, everybody wanting to become an entrepreneur. And I'm sure they're flooded with questions. But we've just selected a few questions for you because we've got to take care of your time too, because we know you're a very, very busy person. So if, I mean, with your permission, can we just start with the questions?
Sure.
So the first one that comes your way is, what have been the key factors for this immense growth of Lenskart, according to you? And a small question added to that: Has COVID-19 affected the business in any way?
I think I would say the key factor is really the DNA of the team, which is very focused towards consumer, and it's very agile, uh, willing to bend, super hardworking. This is the culture of the organization. It's like, when you are in a house, which is a certain kind of house. If you're a Bengali house, it has a certain culture. If you're a Bania house, it's a separate culture. So every organization builds a culture, and it's the culture which takes companies forward. And so I think I would owe a lot of our success to our ability to stay honest to the value that we are creating to the consumer. When things are not right and they're not value adding, we shut them down. When they're working, we go deep enough, we solve that problem, and we are not doing anything for the short term. And I think the thinking has always been long term. We're not here to win a valuation or win an award. We are here to build and solve a problem. So I would owe a lot of that success to the people. And now, and that really applies to COVID-19 also. So COVID-19, nobody has ever witnessed a problem like this, and which is where this culture and team becomes super important. So definitely it hit everybody. It hit us also. But I would say our team has done a phenomenal job in turning around the situation. I'll give you an example. We have 700 stores, and in that 700 stores, there are about 3,000 people that work. And suddenly when the country went on lockdown, these people didn't have anything to do. And, we quickly turned around and made all those consumers call center representatives. They already had mobile phones. We built a software where they would automatically get calls on their phone, and they could ask customers about whether they are safe, if they have any vision needs. And we built an app where they could place orders for those customers on the app. And we at the same time, had to run a factory, and factories were also in those early lockdown days or different to run. So what we decided, we got permission, and a lot of other companies decided that they won't get permission, but we went to the right offices. We told them this is an essential need. We housed 100 people inside the factory approximately. Nobody could go in and out. The food was made there, and we were still shipping glasses, right? And the result of that is that while everybody else was pretty much zero in the eyewear space, we were still doing 50% of our business. And this again goes back to the team and the culture and their ability to execute and look at the problem and find solution, and fearlessly. Yeah.
Okay. Right. I hope this guy's got his answer. So the next question coming to you is, everyone has a driving force behind everything they do. What was yours? And what made you think this would work?
I think for me, the driving force was, my experience in Microsoft, and, I had the opportunity to meet Bill Gates also. And I really saw what they have done to the world, and what would the world be without them. Just our day-to-day life without Microsoft Office, and now what Bill is doing with the Gates Foundation. I think that was the driving force for me since the beginning. That was the inspiration. And I think then the driving force is, once I got onto this vision problem, I realized how big it is, because about 2.4 billion people in the world are without vision. In India, this problem is super big. We don't have eyewear insurance. 30% of the people, students sitting in the audience, would have vision problems, but they wouldn't know about it. 30% of car accidents in India happen because of drivers not wearing specs. So this problem is very big in India. 500 million people needing specs, 170 million wearing it. It's been a stigma. People don't want to wear it. Nobody gets their eyes checked. So I think the driving force right now for me is really, can I make an impact which will solve this problem? And that number where India has 40% of the world's visually impaired, can it come down to, a reasonable number is the driving force. So it just becomes purpose, and it grows on you. Yeah.
Okay. So Piyush, what best practices would you like to give to young entrepreneurs?
I said that, and I'll repeat it again. I think don't try to do a business. Try to solve a problem. Don't look at, okay, this business has good money. This business, can I raise venture money? If you need to raise venture money, to start your business, then I think there is a problem, because to solve a problem, you don't actually need that much money, and to, even grow a business to a certain extent, because if you're solving a problem, then your marketing is happening through word of mouth. People are telling other people, and that's how businesses, that's how some of the best businesses and best restaurants are built. Somebody tells you, I ate there, it was amazing, and that's how they build. You need capital much later, when you need to grow inorganically a business where you say, well, this is valuable, consumers really love it, it's growing, at X pace. Now I want to grow it at 10X pace. So can I become inefficient and grow it inorganically? So, my tip would be that focus on problem solving, focus. Second, I would say is that try to be honest. Sometimes we feel we are solving a problem, but the consumer doesn't feel so. And it happens all the time. We are so much in love with the solution ourselves that we become, we become isolated, and we don't hear people out. So if, you have to be very, very observant. You need to see how people are reacting. So if you build something and people in your own house, or they may not be able to tell you the truth, but if people around you don't really get that wow reaction from them, from real, then, it's okay. You need to understand, okay, why this is happening, what do you need to change, versus convincing them. If you have to convince them that what you have done is right, then I think so it's important to stay honest, not even in the beginning, but throughout, as you are building the business. That's what I would say in terms of starting out, that stay honest and create meaning. Rest, everything will follow. The more you follow the other stuff, and you'll try to get into this game, seeing, okay, wow, this looks good, what valuation, I could also do that, and you start doing the math, I doubt you'll end up anywhere.
So true. Okay, so I have an idea, but no seed funding. Can I still start my entrepreneurial journey?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Just like I said, you should get out, and the passion of an entrepreneur is infectious on people. You don't need money to get people to come along. You don't need, vendors will give you goods. I'll tell you, my co-founders, I just told you, um, I couldn't give them money, and my third co-founder was somebody who was running his optical shops. 50-year-old man running his optical shops, one in Lakshmi Nagar, one in Greater Noida, and I used to go to his shop to learn optical. He just helped me. For 1 year, he was helping me without any commitment. I used to go stand in his shop every day. He has never even visited our office. He didn't care what we were doing. Only when, something realized, we told him, why don't you shut your shops and become part of our company? So, the passion that an entrepreneur carries can really change things. So you don't really need, you think you need money, but you really don't need money. You can, everybody can pay 10,000 rupees and take a little bit of that risk. And, I also think that, this whole problem of I will continue to do a job, but I still try to build a business also is not something that you can do too long, because if you're not fully invested in it, then it won't happen. So yeah, I think the only way it can happen is that you have an idea, you don't have a choice but to start pursuing that idea, meeting customers, solving that problem, put in every penny you have, bring great people, find solutions. And if you're truly doing something valuable, all of that will fall in way.
What was the strategy that you kept in mind while buying stakes in fairly new startups in Israel and America? And did they turn out to be profitable?
Yeah, so we at Lenskart are very, very consumer and problem focused, and our goal was that the future is moving towards and our customers, right, they had two big problems when you're buying online. And not only do, if I tell you to buy a pair of specs online, what will be your two big problems? ये चश्मा मेरे फेस पे कैसा दिखेगा और मेरी आई पावर क्या है? These are the two problems. And so we invested in two companies which are working on these problems. The one in US was working on virtual try-on, trying कैसे, and the one in Israel was working on solving how can I check my power using a mobile phone without any assistance. So we didn't really make these investments to make money. Yes, we have made money on both. They're both doing very well, but we didn't really do these to make money. I think if we have an investment, we would put it in Lenskart. I don't think any investment can make more money than Lenskart can make for us. So we would not want to divest our capital anywhere else.
Okay. So Lenskart has brought a revolution in the eyeglass segment throughout the country. What were your thoughts when you first launched the concept? And was this much of success anticipated in the beginning? Did you anticipate this kind of success?
No, we did not. Actually, when we just saw an opportunity. We knew it was big. Under no circumstance we had any plans that we would become this big. It was, like I said, we just kept solving consumer problems and we became big. We never really realized when we did also. We never really thought. And I still think that, there's a lot ahead of us. So the definition of big is quite relative in India.
Okay. So what message would you like to give to AG students to scale up high in their career?
Well, I don't think entrepreneurship is the only way to scale high up in your career, because today, we have a lot of senior management and they have scaled up very high in their careers and they work just like any other entrepreneur would. I would say that, try focus in your careers on doing things for the long term. Today the environment is such, and we recruit a lot of people, is that, the world has moved towards where, we have all become very, very smart, super smart. People come in, they choose jobs which pay them the highest money. Then they switch jobs every year because they get somebody to pay them more money. You likely won't get too far on that path, right? If you are more clear on what you want to do long term, even if you're not clear, but you're thinking long ahead in terms of doing good quality work, building good experience, doing things that you like to do, doing them with absolute passion and not as a job, or whether it is entrepreneurship or whether it's a job, you're doing it with your heart and you love to do that, and you do it like it is your own always, whether it is or not, I would say then chances are that you would succeed very well in your career, because it won't go unnoticed, right? Whether you're working for someone else or you're working for yourself, it won't go unnoticed. So just do whatever you're doing with absolute hard work, passion, and don't get into this, dynamic of, trying to maximize everything immediately. People who try to grow too fast too soon by a strategy don't really end up growing too fast too soon. People who try to give in everything they have and try to create value for for the consumer, for their company, for themselves, they end up growing sooner or later.
Piyush, there are two students who are very insistent and they'd like to ask you their questions in person.
Sure.
So I'm just connecting them. This is the first one is Anisha Kumari.
Yeah, hi Anisha.
Hello, sir. So
Hi.
first of all, good morning.
Good morning.
So my question from you is to how to cope up with the criticism and negative environment of any corporate world.
As an employee, as a company?
So as an employee, how to cope up with the criticism and negative environment of any corporate world?
From other peers, you are saying, in the company?
Yes, sir.
So, okay, I think it's an interesting one. But look, I would, it's a general question, but what I would say is that in organization, a lot of conversations happen. People who succeed, and I have seen overall, are people who are honest to the organization and they focus on their work and they continue to do what is right for the company, and they don't get focused on these rumors, conversation. If they have a concern, they talk directly to someone. But people who are really, really focused and enjoying what they're doing and they don't care about any of this are the ones that succeed. So, once you really enjoy what you're doing, none of this would matter to you. If you're not enjoying what you're doing, then you need to have a conversation with your company that this is not what I want to do. Do you have another role, or you find something else which suits you best? But if you are really into what you're doing, then I don't see this becoming a big issue. It is only people who have time for these issues have those issues.
We have Preeti. Can we have you on, Preeti?
Hello, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
So here's my question. There are so many entrepreneurs who said we didn't had a single penny when we start the company or any business. So here I want to ask how they do it, like how they get investors.
Okay. I think investors don't build businesses, right? Investors से नहीं बनता है business. Any investor तो बहुत नया phenomena है India में, which is why if your starting point is that I want to do a business for which I need investor, तो फायदा नहीं है business का. You are better doing a job. If you find a problem that needs to be solved, and it is a true problem and it is a big problem, then you work on solving that problem, and you will find people who want to join your hands in solving that problem. And you will find people in friends and family to support you. ये investor की journey बहुत late journey है. और ये जरूरी भी नहीं है कि only if a business is investable or investor comes in they build great businesses, right? ये एक notion है कि investor because media writes about it, it seems like कि ये यही business है. Investor and building great businesses India में तो कभी ऐसे investor था ही नहीं till you go public. So I think this is ये investor को आप अलग कर दो running from starting something. The more you try to find investment, less you will find it.
Piyush, you are becoming a role model for many, I think, here as the session is going on. But my question to you at the tail end of the session is, who is your role model?
Yeah, I think I have, I have few now, and of course, I did talk about Bill Gates. I think what he has done is revolutionary, and which is why I really truly inspire him leaving Microsoft and starting the Gates Foundation and the work that he's doing there. It really takes a lot of courage when you have an enterprise that large. The second role model is my mentor, Ronnie Screwvala, who became my second investor, came along, and ever since I have built a relationship with him where I am able to learn a lot from him. With Ronnie, what I learn is ability to execute, think fast, take decisions, really focus, laser focus, and so that would be the second role model that I would say. My third role model is actually a recent one, is the ex-CEO of Indigo, Aditya Ghosh. And reason is, I don't know Aditya that well. I met him a couple of times, but I do believe that, very few businesses, consumer businesses have been built in India, which are really quality. And I do believe Indigo Airlines is one of them. From the moment you step into that airline, or moment you step into the bus to the ramp, and I think Aditya has a large role to play in building that. And I think it really doesn't feel like a traditional business. It's a great, and I'm a big fan of consumer experience. So yeah, I would say these three right now.
Piyush, this entire session, rather your talks, they're seeped in three clue words that I could glean out of this session. That is passion, energy, and grit and determination. And I'm sure our participants have also picked up the same. I'm really sure all aspiring entrepreneurs have taken huge lessons from your informative and vibrant interaction. We are definitely aware, much aware of your very busy schedule, and therefore we are more than ever grateful for your presence here. On behalf of Asian Education Group, I extend heartfelt gratitude for giving us a peep into your extraordinary entrepreneurial journey. Thank you very much, Piyush.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.